never wound what you can't kill.
In terms of face value, Spider-Man is a cute and friendly guy who protects the neighborhood, but the deeper reality often strays from what we see on the surface. With a versatile roster of villains and antagonists, Spider-Man is no stranger to grotesque villains, with some of the most horrifying appearances. Considering he is a superhero born from the effect of a mutation, well, kind of, several Spider-Man villains have fallen victim to severe mutations that did more harm than good. In today's video, we are going to talk about 10 such villains who personify the term body horror. Before we go into our explanation, we have a very small request. If you like our content, please support us by subscribing to our channel. This is a small click for you, but for us, it means a lot. Thank you. Let's begin. The 1000. We start off this list with an arachnophobic's worst nightmare. The 1000 stays true to his name, and he is literally made up of 1000 spiders. But how did he even come to be? Well, Peter Parker had a bully named Carl King in his class. He had witnessed Peter getting bitten by the radioactive spider that later turned him into Spider-Man. In fact, he even noticed Peter's gradual switch to having superhuman abilities. Hungry to get a taste of having superpowers, Carl located the spider that had bitten Peter, which was already dead by the way. He then ate the spider, keeping his origins gross and disgusting from the get-go. But instead of getting cool abilities, his body broke down into a spider hive mind. But this was not even the worst part. Carl unintentionally consumed his mother from the inside out. He then took control of her remains, which allowed him to discover his current condition. Realizing that consuming people made him stronger, Carl went on to consume his father and his girlfriend. Needless to say, he found a rival in Spider-Man from the very beginning, and he wanted all the strength he could get to go against the friendly neighborhood superhero. When Carl got his hands on Spider-Man, he possessed his skin to experience his powers. He also killed and wore the skin of J. Jonah Jameson's secretary, Jess Payton. Fortunately, he was not that hard to eradicate, as an explosion killed all of his spiders, barring one, who got stepped on by a random citizen, bringing Carl to his demise. While the 1000 was alive, he could literally control people's bodies like puppets. Thanks to his bounty of spiders, he could cling to walls and surfaces just like Spider-Man, and of course, his stamina and endurance were way above that of an average person. What made him a terrifying enemy for Spider-Man was the fact that he did not trigger Parker's spider sense. The 1000's bite also had a venom that could paralyze his victim. His existence is precisely the reason why waking up as a regular human in a regular world devoid of such supernatural encounters seems like a great thing. Freak. Drug addictions can make one do some of the craziest things. So much so that a guy got branded with the name Freak before he turned into one. As the man tried to steal from the poor to get more drugs, he was chased down by Spider-Man. Freak soon spotted Curtis Connor's laboratory and ran inside it. He then got his hands on some animal stem cell fluids, which he considered to be crystal meth. The misconception resulted in him injecting himself with the fluid. A chrysalis formed around his body, and when he emerged, he was a hideous, skinless creature. He later formed another chrysalis after he was shot down by the police, which resulted in him falling into the sewers. When he emerged again, he was a bulletproof animal hybrid, which meant that he couldn't be shot down again. Despite becoming a freak show, in reality, Freak's addiction to drugs was far from over. As such, when he found a meth lab, Spider-Man had no choice but to stop him. Their resulting fight caused the building to catch on fire, with debris falling on Freak. The worst came true when he formed a chrysalis once more and came out stronger and as a fireproof monster that resembled armadillos. He was incapacitated by Spider-Man, who poured quicklime on him after he formed a chrysalis once more. However, it was evident that Freak got stronger with each phase in the chrysalis, to the point that he became immune to each and every threat posed in front of him. If only he were affected by his grotesque appearance, he would probably emerge as a more presentable villain. The transformations also amped his strength, durability, and senses, taking them to superhuman levels. He had been able to create the worst poison on Earth while attaining the ability to heal himself from any issue. As a drug addict though, he was quite often a victim to the pleasure center of his brain, which eventually got incapacitated, making it impossible for him to get high. It does not take a genius to know that this is not the best way to get rid of a drug addiction. Goblin. It's not like the goblins of the Spider-Verse are the most good-looking guys out there. However, a whole new level of grotesque character design was reached with the conception of Goblin, who looked like he was straight out of a terrifying underworld within a magical fantasy story. Originally known as Jason Philly Macendale Jr. or the Hobgoblin, he lost his fights against the Green Goblin and Spider-Man. However, he later followed demons to their lair and met their lord Nastir. He offered his soul to the lord in exchange for powers, while the lord had him possessed soon enough. Naturally, Jason ended up with superhuman strength, speed, and durability. Too bad the demon possessing him turned out to be incompatible with his body. The two of them went on to fight several battles, and both of them tried to gain control over the host's physical body. Ultimately, the demon within him ripped itself away from his boat and started to live as a Goblin. With his name, it would be hard to believe that he was a religious fanatic who was obsessed with wanting to destroy sinners. Clearly, that did not happen. As a villain, Goblin had superhuman strength, stamina, speed, agility, durability, and reflexes. He also had sharp claws with rows of needle-like teeth that were a great +1 during close combat. What made Goblin so remarkable, however, was the unique mystical energies within his body, which he often used to create stuff and sell or put up in festivals. The Goblin could also possess the bodies of others and gain their powers. Other than that, Goblin did have great knowledge of magic and arcane lore, which mildly redeemed some things about him. Kindred. Kindred was an undead villain. The man behind him was surprisingly Peter Parker's best friend, Harry Osborn. They have never had the most free-flowing friendship, but this was a new low for the not-so-dynamic duo. However, plot twists changed certain things, and it was revealed that Kindred was comprised of two people, with none of them being Harry. A previously created controversial storyline paired Norman Osborn with Gwen Stacy, which is worse than the body horror character in discussion. The odd couple secretly had a pair of children, Gabriel and Sarah. They had accelerated aging and sought Peter Parker to get revenge on him for abandoning their mother Gwen. However, another plot twist changed their origin for the third time when it was revealed that they were artificial beings synthesized by Harry Osborn. However, this was not the original Harry, who was actually dead. This was a digital copy of his consciousness, and clearly it kept up the work, though not as efficiently as the originals. The Kindred were grotesque in terms of both appearances and in the way they treated Peter. The creature being similar to a reanimated corpse did not help, and what cute small dogs were to Paris Hilton, centipedes were to this guy. Vermin. Vermin stays true to his name, just like many others from this list. Before he turned into such a creature, he was known as Edward Whelan. His father was secretly abusive, which ruined his self-image. The severe abuse and self-loathing took Whelan to the streets, which had so far been the worst possible scenario for him. Later, Nazi scientist Baron Zemo picked him off the streets and made him a subject for his experiment. Following this, Whelan developed rat-like attributes, powers, and traits, giving birth to the Vermin we know today. Vermin was initially sent off as a villain to Captain America, considering Zemo's involvement in his origin. He was later used as a pawn by Kraven the Hunter in his fight against Spider-Man. In terms of powers, Vermin had superhuman speed, strength, you know how it goes, great physical stats. Other than that, he could talk to rats. In fact, physically, he was a humanoid rat at this point and had razor-sharp teeth with claws. He could also biophysically duplicate himself, thanks to mitosis. Considering a chunk of Spider-Man's story takes place in New York, it only makes sense for Spidey to have a villain who is a rat. Red Vulture. Jimmy Natale started from the bottom as he mainly cleaned the messes made by mobs. The workload increased and he could not keep up anymore, so he sought out his superiors for some help. Jimmy offered his bosses to pick a candidate who would become their subject for an experiment that would create a hybrid between a human and a vulture. However, he got chosen instead and was turned into a vulture against his will. He soon went rogue, and his diet turned into one that consisted of wounded and weak goons. Can't even blame him, because he was forced to turn into a vulture-like being for little to no reason at all. Spider-Man found the being for the first time when he caught the vulture devouring a victim. He then got a glimpse of the creature's acid vomit ability and retreated soon after, since he was temporarily blind. In terms of powers and abilities, Vulture had a mandible instead of a regular mouth, making him more handsome than his peers. The ability to expel an acidic froth that could blind people, albeit temporarily, made him one of New York's most sought-after bachelors. He also had strength that exceeded Spider-Man's and wings that allowed him to live his vulture dreams. Doppelganger. Doppelganger was created after Spider-Man, but since he is getting a feature on this list, there is no doubt about the fact that he looked far from normal. He was evil, almost mindless, had a menacing mouth with sharp teeth and 6 limbs. He was created by Magus using Anthropomorphos M bodies during the Battle of the Infinity War. He was later killed by Goblin, but not for long, as Goblin took it upon himself to mystically bring him back. After the Infinity War ended, all the doppelgangers perished, barring the Spider Doppelganger, who was alive due to his psychic connection with Goblin. He then became the Goblin's pet briefly, but later departed. In terms of powers, Doppelganger had regular superhuman strength, speed, yada yada yada. He could also cling to walls. Well, duh. But what made him menacing was his ability to tear through human tissues with his talons. On the bright side, he had a severe disadvantage in the intelligence department. Long story short, the writers did great justice to the evil twin concept with Spider Doppelganger.
He's gone. There is only Carnage!
Carnage. Carnage is one of the biggest names on this list, and the biggest name so far. He was also an overarching antagonist appearing in Spider-Man the Animated Series, which is easily the superhero's most well-renowned cartoon show. Carnage was an alien symbiote that found itself in an alternate reality after it was accidentally transported there by one of the devices created by Kingpin. It came into the foray after being summoned by the Scarlet Spider, or Ben Reilly, who was trying to stop Kingpin at that moment. On arriving to the present universe, it bonded with one of Peter Parker's clones since it hated humanity. Its influence drove the Parker clone insane, giving birth to Spider Carnage. As an antagonist, Spider Carnage eventually teamed up with the Kingpin Alistair Smythe, Green Goblin, and the Hobgoblin. He went with his business by pretending that he wanted to build a machine that could control minds, when in reality, he was building the machine to make the multiverse meet its ends. Sure, Carnage is similar to Venom in many ways, especially with the fact that it has the same powers as Spider-Man, but to a higher level. It also gives the host a more menacing external appearance. However, Carnage, being an unpredictable and vicious serial killer, makes it more violent than Venom. Its insatiable bloodlust is the most horrifying thing about the symbiote. Ultimately, it does what it does best: cause carnage. The Jackal. The story of the Jackal begins with Miles Warren. Warren used to be a biochemistry professor at the Empire State University. He later studied genetics under High Evolutionary. Around this time, he based his research on the Evolutionary's new men, which are basically anthropomorphic animals, and created the man-jackal. The man-jackal soon went out of control as it escaped and killed Warren's wife and kids. Naturally, Warren became emotionally unstable as it was his own creation that ruined his family. He was soon expelled for his instability and his cloning experiments, which the Evolutionary considered to be something that stagnated human evolution. On the other hand, Evolutionary's new men looked up to Warren for his charismatic nature, but the Evolutionary did not want his creations to experience hopes beyond their audacity. He went on to fall in love with his student and girlfriend of Peter Parker, Gwen Stacy. Unfortunately, Gwen was killed by Green Goblin, making a heartbroken Warren shift the blame to Spider-Man for not being able to save her. He soon tried to clone humans and got Peter and Gwen's cell samples from his student Anthony Serba. While analyzing Peter's cells, he realized that Peter Parker was Spider-Man. Serba later confronted Warren about his human cloning, making him go insane. Warren, who had been consumed by his mania, killed Serba and developed Jackal's personality. He convinced himself that his assistant was killed by someone else and not him. He then dedicated himself to perfecting his cloning process while training his body with equipment to fight Spider-Man. As the Jackal, Warren would look similar to the man-Jackal he had created, with his entire green body, broad face, short chin, ears, and menacing eyes. He attained this appearance by developing a formula that helped him attain the green look. Venom. Finally, we have one of the most popular villains from Spider-Man's gallery of rogues, Venom. Originally a symbiote, Venom was spawned while the Dark Elder god named Null reigned. It was the 998th of its lineage of symbiotes and often had its memories altered. Venom was synonymous with violence, destruction, and death during Null's reign, to whom Venom was loyal. Sometime later, it refused to obey its master and was cast away. In that state, Venom wandered across the cosmos aimlessly, only for it to be discovered by the Kree explorers. They harvested it to understand the symbiote more, and eventually it bonded to Tel-Kar, a soldier. Tel-Kar trained with Venom attached to him, and together they fought in the Kree-Skrull War, where Venom covered several grounds as an assassin, a deep cover spy, and a saboteur. Later, Tel-Kar separated from the symbiote and erased its memories of its run with the Kree. Venom was soon taken to Hala, but the symbiote escaped to search for Tel-Kar, only for it to be marooned once again. Feels strange to think of a jelly-like glob having a sad story. It then bonded to an alien who used the symbiote to carry out genocide against his own homeworld, all while Venom considered the alien to be a noble warrior. This twisted the symbiote's psyche, making it predatory and filling it with hatred and rage. The aggression and bloodlust were then aggravated by an alien arms dealer. Even though the experiments worked out, Venom never harmed its hosts. It acted aggressively to protect its host. In the Secret Wars storyline, Venom found his first human host in Deadpool, who wore the symbiote temporarily while looking for a makeover in Battleworld. Soon, Spider-Man arrived in a damaged suit and became the symbiote's new host when it touched the black sphere it was floating it. With Spider-Man as its new host, Venom imprinted Parker's powers into itself, such as being able to stick to walls. However, those very powers were amplified, and it even gave Parker a stronger and inexhaustible supply of webbing. In terms of powers and abilities, Venom mimicked those possessed by its host, but added several doses of its aggression to them. When it found a new host in Eddie Brock, he gave Brock powers similar to that of Spider-Man's, even though some of them mutated over time, thanks to Brock having an innovative mentality. So technically, Venom is not an evil entity from the get-go, but an accumulation of experiments done to make it aggressive while erasing its memories has resulted in Venom becoming one of Spider-Man's most dangerous antagonists. Unfortunately, many antagonists from this list have not gotten the chance to be persisting, menacing villains in Spider-Man's lore. Ironically, the very thing that makes the viewers and the readers crave more of these violent villains is the same thing that results in them being killed soon. Can't really sustain a lifeline or a successful career as a villain when you're going crazy. And if you liked our content, don't forget to leave a like and subscribe to us if you haven't already. Have a good one and be safe. Thanks everyone.
What the hell are you?
We are Venom.